So I grew up playing tennis primarily. That was kind of my family's main sport, and played through high school and played my first year of college. But my body just started breaking down. My shoulder fell apart, everything. And I had skied a little bit. I mean, I grew up skiing, but it wasn't anything I was particularly good at. I was just kind of your average recreational skier. But you know, tennis is a very analytical sport, and so when I couldn't play tennis anymore, I had 4 shoulder surgeries. When I couldn't play tennis anymore, I thought, could I possibly take that same kind of analytical approach to tennis and use it in skiing? And I really needed to do something. It was, you know, tennis was such an important part of my life that I found myself getting depressed. The fact that I couldn't play tennis, and so I just poured myself into skiing. And it was kind of a funny story. I had just finished a big project, and I was single at the time and didn't have my daughter, and so, you know, I was your typical, you know, 30-something-year-old who, you know, had money and had time off. So I decided what I really wanted to do was go skiing in Europe. And specifically in my head, I wanted to go to Chamonix. So I went onto my computer and I Googled women. I wanted to go with women. And I Googled women's ski trip and Chamonix. And what popped up was a ski clinic that was leaving the next day for Chamonix. And I had a lot of points on my American Express, thankfully, so I was able to get a ticket to go the next day. And off I went, thinking it was going to be a combination of fun skiing, meeting some cool women, and partying in the Alps. That sounded pretty good to me. And so off I went, and I arrived to discover that I really hadn't signed up for, like, a vacation trip. I had signed up for this really, really intensive ski clinic that started at 6 in the morning with stretching and classes, and went out onto the snow, and it was day after day after day like this. And the instructors, they were American instructors who were some of the best in the world, said, you know, your skiing is pretty darn bad, and we're going to completely tear it down and build it back up again. And I could have hung on to that with ego and said, no, I'm a good skier, just tune me up a little bit. But instead I said, okay, you know, you got to do what you got to do, go ahead. And it was the strangest experience, because I really, in some ways, felt like I was completely buck naked, like I had just had my identity stripped from me. And but I did it, and I started to really completely change the way that I approached the sport. And I ended up, I think, going to 4 or 5 of those clinics over the next bunch of years, and am now a very advanced level skier. People will actually stop me and go, were you an instructor? Were you a professional skier? And I sort of giggle and I'm like, no, I'm just an ex-tennis player who needed something to do to keep from getting depressed. And I absolutely love to ski. But what I really took from that, and it's really pervasive in all of my life, is kind of a funny quirk about me, is that I love to be wrong. I love to have that aha moment when somebody calls me on something and says, you know, Barb, that's actually not the right approach, or there's a different way you could say this, or a different way that you could do this. And I sit there and think, you know, you're absolutely right. There is a different way, and I shouldn't hang on to the old way, just like I didn't hang on to the old way of skiing, kind of my intermediates. And maybe I can change. And what I've ended up doing, and this is I would say a culture that I've put into my own household as well as into our business, is just constant and never-ending improvement. And sometimes improvement goes all the way to completely turning something upside down and finding a new way to think about something or to do something. And it's fun. It makes life really fun. And I never get bored. I never get to the point where I get tired of doing something, because I always know I can do something better. I can do something differently. I can innovate. Whatever it is, I like to shake my life upside down all the time and say, what's next? What am I going to do now? What do I need to learn? And it's a lot of fun, and I love it. And I love skiing too.